In this chapter, we're going to talk about how to compare proportions or means from two different samples. So this is going to be hypothesis testing with two different samples. And they have to be independent samples, meaning that the oops, didn't mean to cross it out, meant to underline it, meaning that they can't be related to each other. So here's the first example we're going to look at. Insecticide-treated bed nets reduce malaria among infants. So in countries that have malaria issues, can you help this by having infants sleep under nets? So our two proportions, so proportion 1 would be the infants who sleep under the bed nets, and proportion 2, the infants who do not sleep under bed nets. So our alpha is going to be 0.01. So just some new symbols you're going to see. So when we talk about population 1's proportion, that's P1. The sample size for sample 1 is N1. The number of successes would be X1. So the proportion, which we call P hat 1, is going to be X1 over N1. And Q hat 1 is 1 minus P hat 1. So population 2 proportion is called P2. The size of the sample is N2. The number of successes is X2. So P hat 2 will be X2 over N2. Q hat 2 is 1 minus P hat 2. And our pooled proportion, which we call P bar, is X1 plus X2 divided by N1 plus N2. And the complement, which we would call Q bar, is 1 minus P bar. Now we're going to use our calculator to do much of those things, but it's good to kind of see what it looks like. So we're going to now test this claim. So the claim is that insecticide-treated bed nets reduce malaria. So another way to say the claim is that malaria among infants under bed nets, so that's our P, our population 1, is less than the number of malaria without bed nets. So the way we write our null and our alternate hypotheses here, our null hypothesis is that they're equal, that P1 equals P2. And our alternate hypothesis is going to be that P1 is less than P2. So remember, when we do hypothesis testing, we always assume that the null hypothesis is true. So that we assume that there's no difference. So here's the study results. This would be given to you in a problem. So in population 1, so X1 here is 15 out of N1, 343 infants developed malaria. For population 2, 27, so that would be X2, out of 294, that would be our N2, without bed nets developed malaria. So we want to know, is there a significant difference? So we're going to follow these tests. So we're going to do stat and go over to test just like you did for other hypothesis tests, and go down to number 6, the 2-prop Z test. So we'll put our X1 in 15, our N1 343, our X2 27, and our N2 294. Okay, and we wanted the less than P2. Oops. So then we're going to hit calculate, and it will give us our Z value, our test statistic, negative 2.44, which remember helps us find P. So P here is 0.007, and we wanted to compare that to 0.01. So here 0.007 is less than 0.01, so we reject the null hypothesis, which means we can support the claim. Okay, so we're going to do one more example here. So number 2 says, at a recent World Series game, the Houston Astros were ordered to keep their stadium roof open. Houston claimed that opening the roof would cause them to lose significant home field advantage because of less fan noise effect. Did Houston have a valid complaint? So we're going to test it with a significance level of 5%. So the way we're going to test this population will be the games with the roof closed, and population 2 will be games with the roof open. So P1 equals P2, and their claim is that they win more games with the roof closed than with the roof open. So here's the study information. So the study information says that Houston won 36 out of 53 games played with the roof closed, so that was population 1, so 36 will be our X1, and 53 will be our N1, and 15 out of 26 games played with the roof open, so that'll be our X2, be 15, and our N2 will be 26. So we're going to go to that same 2-prop Z test. Stat over to test, down to number 6. So we'll put this information in. And here we were claiming that P1 was greater than P2. So the Z here was 0.89. Our p-value is 0.186. Remember, alpha was 0.05. So 0.818 is much bigger. So since P is greater than alpha, we do not reject the null hypothesis. So we would not support the claim that the Houston Astros would win more games with their roof closed.